What up, y'all? It's your boy RCR Mooly Main, and we back with another podcast, the Elephant in the Room podcast. We're going to be talking about SEC football, and personally, I think all the SEC biasing is very overblown, and it's something that just college football fans from other conferences are butthurt about because SEC is that good and they don't want to admit it. But this week we looked pretty bad. We looked pretty bad, and even though every conference was struggling against FCS and a group of five teams, uh, the thing is that Florida and Arkansas, two ranked teams, did it, so it's going to look worse. And admittingly, it should look worse for the SEC. Not as much as for Florida as it is Arkansas, given how good Arkansas has been this season and how good they're perceived to be. So I'm going to get into that game. I also think Arkansas's performance was the worst performance out of all like the narrow wins that happened this weekend. So I will give that credit where this due to you other conferences, but Big Ten definitely had the worst in terms of just how many teams. I think it was I found four teams that came close to losing or actually lost, like Southern Illinois beating Northwestern. So that's something. And yeah, after that, let's get with that out of the way. Let's get into it. So SEC first off is Bama, ULM. Bama completely dominated defense, special teams, but Bama fans are upset. They are upset, and they should be. As a Bama fan, I am, and that is for because of Bill O'Brien, and it's. I guess part of the reason you could say is also the receivers not getting separation, but dude, they're not the play calling has not been good, and personally, I thought Bill O'Brien was pretty nice last season, and with how he was using Jamison Williams, I mean, it was very clear how Jamison and John Mechie were. John Mechie was great at in short yardage gains and stuff like that, and getting like those small yardage. Same with Slade Bolden and Jameson could just torch you and go for like those big plays, those big highlight plays. But now it's like it just seems like it's not anything good going for them, and they have too much talent for them not being able to get them to create separation. And sometimes they get separation, but like the way that other teams cover them is it's basically nothing. Whereas like Bryce Young has nowhere to throw the football, man. He really has nowhere to throw, and it's really concerning, man. And I'm someone I've never really looked at football that deeply to where I was like, oh, it's all the coordinator's fault. It's this fault because I remember Lane Kiffin and Sark got that, and I never was really that. But this is really the first time where I'm like, okay, there's something wrong with the play calling. There's something seriously wrong. There were times when with what's his face, what's the defensive court, Pete Golding, that I felt that, but I never truly felt that strong, especially since I think he's been doing great this season. I think there's some Bama fans that are hating on Pete Golding, and it's like, dude, watch the games, bro. He's doing what he needs to be done. So just watch the games. Even if ULM had some pretty decent drives, like come on, bro, he's doing his job. So yeah, I'm still concerned about this Alabama team and. Dude, this receiving core, not to mention this running back room. I mean, the running backs did do fairly well, I think, against you. Well, at least when I was watching, Trey Sanders, I saw get in. I was happy. He got a couple good plays, but then he committed a bad penalty and was pulled out the game. And then who is it? Jamarion Miller. He came in and he was balling out. Freshman from Tyler, Texas. Good for him. He got a couple good 10-yard gains, and 10 plus yard games. So it's good to see he was running hard, and yeah. But the fact that Jameer Gibbs was leading the team in receiving, and they were from like dump off passes and him just running down the field and creating yards is concerning. That is very concerning. Uh, and Trayshawn Holden has not been getting that many targets, but when he is, He does seem to be when he does get a catch in like the open field and stuff. He is able to go through defenders and score. So try to get Trayshawn more looks. Hopefully, when we get JoJo and Tyrell Harrell, we'll have more deep threats. We'll have more speedsters on the team, but still, we should be doing much. We should be doing much better with the receiving crew we got. And outside of Gibbs, Holden, and Latu, no one had more than one reception. And Ja'Cory Brooks had the most yards out of all of them with 29. What's happening with Ja'Cory? I don't know. It seems like he only shows up in late game situations like that. But hey, that's what I feel about Bama football. But as a Bama fan, I'm hoping it gets better. I really hope it gets better. There's still time to improve, but let's go on to the matchup for this week, which was Texas A&M Miami. There's been a lot of flack because Texas A&M was ranked, and I completely agree. They should not have been ranked. And a lot of people were saying it was SEC bias. That is nonsense. It's more of just a recruiting bias and big name bias going into this week because it's the same with Oregon. Oregon had no reason being ranked top 25, but because it's Oregon and they at least get decent good recruiting classes, it's going to be ranked. And I also saw some people using the same argument with Florida, which I agree. Florida is not a top 25 team, but considering that they beat a preseason number 7 Utah team, and not to mention that Utah team absolutely deserved that number 7. They by that standard, why shouldn't they be top 25? I don't think they should be top 25. They're not good enough. But how can you argue that they should? That they should not just based on that. So that's the thing that's going to keep Florida in the top 25. I think they're going to fall a few spots. They're probably going to flip-flop rankings with A&M. But yeah, Anthony Richardson, he's looked awful as a passer, and I think he just had the game of his life. He had like a Zach Calzada kind of game against Utah, like how Calzada had against Bama. So it's yet to be determined, man, what happens with Florida. But I don't think they're a top 6 team in the SEC. I think they're a very middle of pack. Maybe probably slightly below average team. Probably going to be above like an LSU or a Mississippi State, Auburn. They're definitely above Auburn, Missouri, and what do you call it, Vandy. But I don't see that much from Florida's offense and Florida's defense. I at least expected Florida's defense to be pretty well, and they did show up late in the game. But why is USF running all over them? And I get USF, dual threat quarterback, also has a really big on the running game. Pretty good running back. But they're pretty good for USF standards. And I think, what is his name, Bohannon, the quarterback, he only went 11 of 26 or 12 of 26 passing, and no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But if you watch that game, when he was awful, the passing game was awful. Don't get me wrong, but when they were running the ball a lot, and then they weren't and during the drives, when going on long drives, for example, when let's say they weren't getting the rushing yards they wanted, and it was coming down on third downs and stuff, and they needed a big throwing pass. I don't know. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm stripping up too much. When they needed a big play, like a passing play, and they needed a conversion for a first down or just to get the running game moving again, he was able to make those plays, and that's really concerning for this Florida defense. The defenses this weekend have been awful, because speaking of awful defenses, let's get to you, Arkansas. Easily the worst performance I've seen this weekend, dude. Against an FCS team, and hey man, what's his face? The coach for Bobby Petrino for Missouri State. Guess they wanted vengeance, man. Maybe that's what it was, man. The team came in with a lot of emotions. He came in with a lot of emotions. They really loved their coach. Maybe that's what it was. In all honesty, but it did confirm my suspicions I had about Arkansas, dating from last season, where it's like I remember last season when Arkansas was getting all the hype. People were raving about the defense, how they're fast, how they're aggressive, they want to hit hard and whatnot, which I agree. That is what their defense wants to do. However, I can also attest to from watching the Ole Miss game, watching the Bama game, they do let and allow a lot of big plays. They do allow, and it seems like sometimes whether it be the defense just being over aggressive in coverage or whatnot, or just the defensive coverages themselves, where they will be covering aggressively most of the field, but then they'll be allowing one guy fairly open to go and make a play, and they'll just allow this big play that will really hurt the team, and allow several big plays because they also get a lot of three and outs. They do get a decent amount of three and outs, but they also allow a lot of big plays, and that's concerning for Arkansas's defense. I'm not I'm not the person that's like really analyzing their covers like crazy, but I've seen pockets where the Missouri State quarterback, who by the way had a great game, he was passing the ball very well. Even though I don't think they should have been in the game, I have to give credit where credit's due. He was making accurate passes. And he had a couple passes where, in very good coverage, where he missed his receiver by like inches. It like barely went past the fingertips of the receiver. One of them was a touchdown. And they were both big plays. And hey, man, he really balled out. And he's also he's also really fast on the ground as well. So I'm going to give that Missouri State quarterback, a lot of credit where it's due. But, dude, but that Arkansas defense is concerning, especially since both KJ Jefferson and Raheem Sanders had career days, rushing and throwing. Why did it come down to them doing that to win? Because I will say, on the one hand, the fact that the defense was so poor, but the offense was still able to do what they did, and the special teams came and got a very big touchdown because they were losing, and then it was like in a minute they came and retook the lead, and then it was Arkansas's game from there. That's what good teams do, because every good team, whether it be Ohio State or Alabama or Georgia or whatever, maybe not Georgia recently, but every good team will have a game where they just struggle in that game, especially Clemson. Clemson was doing that when they were a lead. But they just find a way to win these games. And when Arkansas can find ways to pull out games, whether it be special teams or whether it be the quarterback and the running back really just stepping up their game, that's also a good sign too. Yes, their defense needs to make up for their coverages, and also there were some plays where there was like one play where where it was either a goal route or a wheel route where the DB just got completely blown, the Arkansas DB, and then the safety wasn't quick enough on rotating, and it allowed for a big play near the sideline, a big pass near the sideline. That's not good, obviously. So it was also part of it, just the receivers being bad in coverage, and I think they can be a little too aggressive in these coverages, man. So that's something Arkansas I think needs to work on, but there's also positives. Kentucky versus Youngstown State. I watched bits and pieces of this game. The Kentucky offense still looks kind of very mediocre, but dude, that defense is legit, man. That defense is absolutely legit. And even though I think Will Levis's stock may be sliding because, for one, they were also making like a lot of just small, safe plays, like 5 yard and under passing type plays where it's like, come on, man, let him throw down the field a little bit. Maybe it's also the receivers. I think actually it is a lot of the receivers not being able to get open, which is concerning. But the reason why I'm high on Kentucky and why I might say they might be the third best team in the SEC, because despite everything, if when Chris Rodriguez comes back, because he's coming back for the first game, for Kentucky's first conference matchup game, I believe. Well, their first game was against Florida, but their next game, their next upcoming game in conference, Chris Rodriguez was one of the best backs. Could have went to the NFL and is coming back. If he can be as productive as he was and be, I had him as like the best running back coming into the league, but Raheem Sanders is balling out too much. So let's say he's the second best. If he can be that, watch out for Kentucky, man, because that defense is gonna hold teams, man. Even the best, I can see them holding even the best of the offenses to under 30 points. And if they're running the ball enough to like open it up for Will Levis, watch out. Watch out for Kentucky. Georgia, South Carolina. Let's What do I have to say? Just get the Spencer Rattler memes going. I will admit I have to take accountability that I thought Spencer Rattler, even though I didn't think he was a good quarterback coming in, I didn't have him on the level of a Hendon Hooker or a Will Levis or KJ Jefferson. I still thought he was right below them. Maybe, and with the way Will Levis, I'm like, okay, with the way Will Levis was playing, I'm like, oh, maybe it's he could show something, because he has shown some good throws, but I guess it's the same that it's always been in Oklahoma State, where he does make good passes and stuff, but then he'll make these awful interceptions right to the defensive backs, man. I didn't watch too much of the South Carolina game, but I watched enough, and I watched the highlights, and I watched a couple of drives that really showed me that, one, Georgia's ridiculous, because South Carolina, even though I don't think they have a great defense, I think it's a nice defense, a respectable defense. Not a good, but maybe like above average, like a 6 out of 10 defense. Spencer Rattler, man, I don't know what to think, because in those first two games, I gave him some of the blame and also said, like, hey, some of these receivers are not creating separation, and Spencer's been having to do a lot. A lot of them are rollouts and stuff. He's not really staying in the pocket. I don't know if that's by play. It seems like it's by play design, but dude, I think it's over for Spencer Rattler, man. I'm not gonna lie though, he might be better than Anthony Richardson. He might be better than Anthony Richardson, because Anthony Richardson, man, as a passer is egregious. But I'm not gonna say he's definite. Actually, no, that might even just be disrespectful to Anthony Richardson that I said that. But we'll see. We'll see. South Carolina is pretty sad, considering how this program was an up-and-coming program. And while I still thought they were going to be like a 7-5 team in this conference, I still thought they were going to be an improved team. And it's really not looking great for this team, man. It's not. I remember they had like a good running back. I'm bad with names, man, but I remember he was a pretty good running back who kind of just went off in the bowl game last year against North Carolina. Is he back? Because if he is back, not that their running game has also been terrible. Hasn't been the best, I would say. So that's also something you should take into consideration. But dude, like, what are we expecting from South Carolina? I don't know, man. But they are throwing the ball a lot. Maybe they should run the ball more, even if it hasn't been good. Maybe they should do like what I don't know, like what Bo Nix and Oregon are doing. Even though I don't think Spencer's quite the runner that Bo Nix is, he's still pretty fast. He's still a mobile quarterback. Maybe if you start doing that and start opening up the lanes for him, because Spencer's vision can be a little shoddy sometimes. There are times when he does miss an open receiver or whatnot, or he does try to force a pass. So if they start opening up the game more, that would be something too. I don't know. That's just a thought. I'm not a football coach, but that's just a thought to consider. Next up, Oh, I'm talking a lot. I'm really talking a lot. But I hope it's all good content. So let me know how good this content is, man. Missouri, Abilene Christian, who cares? Ole Miss destroyed Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is one of the worst programs in ACC. They're probably the Vanderbilt of the ACC right now. That being said, at least Ole Miss did what they needed to do. I'm still not sold on this team, bro, because Jackson Dart again had a really suspect performance. 10 of 16, 207 yards, one interception, no touchdowns. Their running back had two touchdowns, 134 on 18 carries, so that's good. But I will say, I do like how Lane Kiffin has evolved as a coach because now he's allowed his team to become more defensive oriented, and yeah, Jackson Dart is not looking great, man. In these games against these bad opponents, and I don't know how far Ole Miss is going to go. Are they a number 20 team in the country? My gut says no. My gut says no. And but they were great last year, and they also killed it in the transfer portal. So that's the thing. I think they were like what the second or third best team. They're probably the third best team behind USC and Bama, but they really killed it in the transfer portal. So let's see how Ole Miss does, man. Penn State and Auburn. I'm a Bama fan, so it's funny. But also as a Bama fan, I'm an SEC fan, so I like to see SEC teams try to destroy this stupid narrative. And Auburn is one of the worst teams in the SEC. I think Penn State being the third best team in Big Ten, beating up on the third worst team in the SEC makes sense. And I didn't think this game was going to be close, but for Penn State to beat them the way they beat them was absolutely sad. Especially considering, because I watched a lot of that first quarter, Auburn's defense was being fast. They were being aggressive. They were getting the quarterback. They were forcing 3-and-outs, man. They were doing that. But because the offense was so bad, like I need to look up how many first downs they got. But TJ Finley may just be the worst quarterback in the SEC. He may just be the worst starting quarterback in the SEC right now. Worse than Vandy's or Missouri's or freaking Jackson Dart or Spencer Rattler. This TJ Finley, like his stat line doesn't look the absolute worst. 11 of 19, 152 yards, one interception. But when you watch him play, he looks absolutely uncomfortable. He's not mobile. He's not a good passer. I don't know why he's a starting quarterback. Like, honestly, give Zach Calzada a shot. Because I know he did not look good again with Texas A&M. And he wasn't that accurate of a passer. But he's young. He's younger, if I'm not mistaken. He is younger by a year. So maybe not the best, but still, try it because I don't know. They did put Robbie Ashford in there, who was also produced a similar stat line, had a way worse QBR, but hey, you got a touchdown. So maybe Zach Calzada is really just terrible. So scratch out Zach Calzada, man. For them to like get another quarterback in who put up similar stats as TJ Finley, who also threw 19 passes, had eight less yards, but also had a touchdown. Both had one interception. Enough with the quarterback thing, because that's the thing, man. For this defense to allow 41 points was pretty sad against Sean freaking Clifford, for him to play the way he played. But their running back, Nick Singleton, oh my goodness, man. This guy is what's going to make Penn State a top 15 team and a team to watch out for in the Big Ten, because this guy, for him, he was like the number one running back out of high school. He's a freshman, man. And for the way he's been playing lately in these games, because he's been racking it up in these Penn State games. He's been racking it up. So it's good to see this. It's good to see him get it going and stuff. So hey, Penn State, man, y'all might just have a good team. I wasn't as high on you, but hey, you proved me wrong. I did think you were a top 4 team in the Big 12, no doubtedly. I did think that, but hey, maybe y'all are even better than what I expected, man. But last thing I wanted to say was like Auburn's running game wasn't able to get too much going either, which is kind of sad. Which was also pretty sad. That and is another story because like even though T.J. Finley was awful and stuff, uh, I read out his stat line. It wasn't the absolute worst. Like considering what I said about like Jackson Dart, for example, their receivers were making a lot of yards after catch. They were doing a lot of yards after catch. In fact, one of them was like a dump off pass to Tanks Bigsby, where he ran like 40 yards right before the end of the half. So and bro went off. He made like 3 or 4 Penn State guys miss, and that was the highlight play of the game. Well, I probably shouldn't even say that considering how bad the rest of the game was for Auburn, but that's just besides the point, man. Tanks Bigsby, he really helped out T.J. Finley's stat line right there, and dude, it's not looking good for Auburn. Auburn's in the dumps right now, but everyone was expecting as an SEC fan for Auburn to be this bad, and they still were confident to say this is the best conference, so not too much to worry about. Vanderbilt, Illinois, I don't want to talk too much about this, but I do want to say that Vanderbilt was down at half, and for them to just, the quarterback threw, they just went ahead and scored 3 touchdowns and took the game against Northern Illinois, which is not a good team. And Vanderbilt is been consistently the worst team, but at least they're beating the teams they need to. They beat Hawaii 63-10. They beat Elon 42-31. And Wake Forest has been a struggling Wake Forest team, but they're still a ranked team where even though they beat Vanderbilt pretty handily, they won 45-25. And my shock was, how did Wake Forest, this ranked team, allow Vanderbilt to put up 25 points? Oh, damn. Joseph Boulevas is their kicker? Okay. Well, I didn't just want to throw that out there for Bama fans, but yeah, man, they're still able to put up numbers on the board and stuff. And this Swan guy for Vanderbilt, this freshman quarterback, he's not been making too many passes, 29 of 46 on the season in 3 games, but he has 452 yards, 6 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. So even though Vanderbilt as a collective is terrible, I mean, hey, that might be this quarterback might just be better than freaking T.J. Finley or Spencer Rattler or Jackson Dart. Maybe not the other two, but T.J. Finley, yeah, man. At least Vanderbilt's looking a little better than they have in previous seasons. So shout out to Vanderbilt. You guys still suck. You're still one of the worst Power 5 teams, but shout out to Vanderbilt, guys. Damn, this video is going too long, man. Maybe I should wrap it up. Did I talk about LSU and Mississippi State? Oh, man. But before I talk about that game, because that's a conference game, let me get the other games out of the way. I talked about Missouri State and Arkansas. I talked about Florida. Did I talk about Florida and USF? I'm forgetting because I had to redo this, but I'll just go on and say Anthony Richardson looked terrible. The quarterback for USF, passing-wise, was terrible. But the thing was, even though the stat line was terrible, he made the right completions at the right time. Like, for example, when Florida was finally able to stop the running game from getting big yards, and like it will come down to third down situations or the running game becomes momentarily stagnant, he was able to make the completions at the right time. So I give him that. But that being said, Florida had absolutely no reason to keep it close with USF, and the fact that I know Anthony Richardson was going to be terrible, and I'm not surprised by it, I should say. I didn't expect him to be this terrible against this team, but for the defense to also keep it close, that's also concerning too. Even though they got it together in the fourth, and they got that interception, which was a bit of luck because it went right through the receiver's hands. But They did get that interception, and dude, Florida's going to be one of the worst teams in the SEC, dude. It's not going to be a top 25 team. Uh, they're there because they beat a good Utah team, and Anthony Richardson had a Zach Calzada Alabama game. So I'm sorry if I repeated that twice, but that's what. But I forgot. Tennessee destroyed Akron. Let's go Tennessee, man. Maybe Pitt is a better team than what we expected because I thought Pitt. I'm a little higher on Pitt as a program because in these past 10 years and so, even if they weren't ranked, they're always one of the better teams in the ACC. Which even though ACC sucks, that should be something to say, man. And they do have a storied program in terms of Hall of Famers and whatnot. So that might be a quality out of conference win for Tennessee. Tennessee may just be competing with Kentucky, man. Though I think those three teams in the SEC East, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Georgia, those are like legitimate top 15-ish teams, man. Legitimate skilled teams. Vandy, Mizzou, South Carolina, Florida, yeah, not so much. But we talked about Missouri, we talked about Auburn, we talked about Ole Miss, Missouri. Ooh, did I talk about Texas A&M? So now we're on to Texas A&M, Miami, and then we're gonna finish it up with LSU, Mississippi State. Texas A&M, bro. You guys had no reason to be in the top 25. You guys also were a laughing stock, were the butt of memes for a week, but you came and you got the win. I think part of it was Miami being especially that special teams play. That was easily one of the worst plays I've seen in all of my life watching football. That special teams play by Miami, and it frustrates me as a Miami fan, dude, because oh man, our quarterback can throw it down the field. We have a good quarterback, and he is very accurate, and he has a good frame. He's 6'5". He can throw it wherever. He can see the field. But these receivers weren't getting open, and also some of these receivers weren't on the same page. Whereas like he wanted to make these quick throws, but the receivers weren't running the right route, or they weren't breaking out of their cuts in time. They just seemed out of sync, man. And dude, we're really missing Rambo and Harlan, man. We're really missing both of those receivers because the inexperience of Miami and their youth at the receiving game is alarming. Not to mention on the defensive side, the defensive line was blowing up Texas A&M's O-line. Our defensive line was blowing up A&M's O-line and getting to Max Johnson. Yeah, Max Johnson didn't have that great of a game, but part of it was because the line wasn't protecting him. But there were times when I was like, hey man, you could have made that pass or whatnot. But the heroes on offense for Texas A&M was Achane and Anais Smith, because Anais, even though he only had 4 receptions for 70 yards or something, 60 yards, his yards after catch ability and his playmaking ability really just helped take the Miami defense, the Miami secondary, on their heels, and same with the Chane, man, his receiving out of the backfield too, and also him running the ball. He was pretty good running the ball too today. So those are the two heroes for Texas A&M. Even if the pass blocking wasn't that great, they still found a way to pull out the win. They still were able to cover the Miami receivers, those DBs, even though they were missing 4 DBs. And that's also the thing too, was Miami even a legitimate top 25 team, dude? Because in that fourth quarter, you could see that Texas A&M team getting tired. They even had one of their starting defensive tackles and a linebacker being completely exhausted, coming out for a few plays and whatnot. And they were already thin at DBs. Their DBs were already thin, man. But they still were able to keep Miami in check. And I think it's because they didn't allow, at least even if the receivers weren't doing good at getting separation, at least draw plays to for downfield passing because dude, Van Dyke is a gifted and talented passer. He even showed some beautiful, accurate passes in that game, but he wasn't allowed to open it up, and it's just sad for Miami. But hey, Texas A&M, you got to win over a top 25 team. I guess that justifies you being a top 25 team now, even though I don't think you're a top 6 team in the SEC. In all honesty, I still have Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, and maybe some other team being above you. But there you go. Congrats. And for the last game of the day, my voice is going out, so I'm gonna make sure I finish on a hot note with this. Was Mississippi State LSU, and this was a team I really want to talk about because LSU and Mississippi State, man, this I was really high on this Mississippi State team last year. I mean this year because last year they tied with Arkansas with like the third best record in the SEC West. And not to mention, the reason why they lost to Arkansas was because of their kicking game. They missed 4 field goals in that game, and they lost to Arkansas by like 3 or 6 points, dude. They easily should have won that game. But it was so bad to the point where on fourth downs, like in goal times, like they had to like go for it and stuff. Not to mention, in the LSU game last year, they were down 28-10. Their kicker missed a 33-yard field goal that would have ended up tying the game and forcing overtime. And they also missed key field goals against Memphis, but like if you were keeping it close against Memphis, then you deserve to lose. I don't care what you say. So I'm not going to let you get that. But Mississippi State, they literally had to hold open tryouts for the kicking position because it was that bad. And even though this game, even though they've had some struggles, they're still better than last year. Even though they have missed, 3 extra points I can count on the season, they have made some field goals, man. So to see them shoot themselves in the foot this much and lose to LSU, and this was truly a tale of two halves, man, because, bro, Mississippi State was balling in that first half, and then after that muffed punt, it just completely changed on both sides of the ball, because LSU all of a sudden the Mississippi State's O-line wasn't able to block, and I feel so bad for Will Rogers, man, because he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the entire college football landscape. And he is a very talented passer, even if a lot of his passes are just very short yard gains. He is very good at those. He can pinpoint those with great accuracy. And Mississippi State, they were getting separation, and then all of a sudden, their DBs just stepped it up and stopped allowing that, man. And they filled up the running game, even though the running game is more of like it's more just like a complimentary thing, like they pass it a lot, and then when they line it up, when they like stack like the receiving, like the edges and stuff, and like the box isn't the box isn't stacked as much, then they run the ball kind of stuff. But dude, you had 3 straight fourth downs and you run the same exact play on 3 straight fourth downs. Mississippi State, the first time it worked, but the next 2 times it didn't work, and it's ridiculous on how like 4th and short, you're doing running plays out of shotgun. You're doing running plays out of shotgun, handing off to the running back, and not to mention those last 2 fourth downs plays they missed. LSU loaded up on the line. Where it was like there were 7 LSU defenders lined up against 5 Mississippi State blockers, and they came and they both times in those last 2 fourth downs they tackled the running back behind the line of scrimmage. And it's like, Will Rogers, man, you got one of them. I was like, Will Rogers definitely had to pull the ball out and run it himself, even though he's not that fast of a quarterback. Like, On one of them, like two plays earlier, he did the same exact thing and ran it for like 9, 10 yards and got a good gain. So it was like LSU was reading you guys, and the play calling was terrible. Like it frustrates me because like they got talent. This Mississippi State team has talent, but they keep shooting themselves in the foot, man. And not to mention, I will say also LSU did start utilizing Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is a terrible quarterback, and we've seen him he was doing the same thing that he was doing against FSU in the first week, where he's uncomfortable in the pocket. He's not staying in the pocket too long, even when his lineman is giving him good time. He doesn't see open receivers all the time. He's not very talented as a passer, and he's too quick to run the ball. He's a good runner. Don't get me wrong. He's a really good runner. But when the defense knows you're hesitant to pass and you're more likely to just run the ball, to scramble, they start defending that. And what they did is what LSU started doing was like they started kind of using him kind of like how Will Rogers was being used, if I had to say. Where it's like they basically told Jaden Daniels, bro, don't think about it. Don't be looking down the field and be trying to make decision making because you're not a decision maker. Just look for your first option and just make quick dump off passes and trust your receivers. And that's what they did. They were making very short 1-2 yard passing plays, and the receivers were getting open. Were making more yards out of it. And during the broadcast, they said that LSU had one of the best receiving cores in the SEC. Dude, if I'm going to be honest, even as a Bama fan, I hate to admit it, but LSU definitely has one of the best, if not the best, receiving core up there with Georgia in the SEC. And yeah, Neighbors went off, man. They were like 3 third downs and like a critical 4th and 3 in like clutch time. In complete clutch time in the fourth quarter, where Neighbors created a lot of separation and was able to get open, and it's like Mississippi State out of nowhere was unable to stop him, and it was just like the routes they were running, was best utilized for Neighbors and best utilized for Jaden Daniels, where he was able to not have to think. He was just able to just make the throws, even if they weren't that accurate. Neighbors was able to have enough separation where he can stop, or he's talented enough to catch it behind him or whatnot. So yeah, LSU pulled out that win, man. Not to mention it was a tale of two halves for both of the lines, man, because it went from like Mississippi State's O and D line dominating to LSU's O and D line dominating, which was very odd, but that's where you win games, from the line. So, wow, I talked a lot about SEC football, but I am passionate, and I hope I didn't waste too much time, because I know I talked for 43 minutes, but I hope I packed it with enough information that you guys liked. So give me some feedback in the comments. Let me know what you think of it. This is RTR Mooley Main with SEC football. Take it easy, y'all. Peace.